Hello, makers. I'm Jen Joyce, the host of Making Conversation, a podcast for people who love yarn, fiber, and the stories behind the folks who bring it all to life. I like to say it is the perfect thing to throw on while you're working on your whip. This episode is another re-record from Flock Fiber Festival 2025. Originally, we sat on stage and had a lovely chat, but as you might have heard me say before, the re-records, due to a wonderful soundboard snafu, have been a blessing in disguise because we get so much more from these conversations. From garden and farm to skein, the art and science of natural fiber, how sheep, plants, and chemistry all come together to shape the fiber we love. We talk about the way agriculture, science, and artistry intersect, and how every skein that we hold has a story that starts long before it hits our needles. I'm joined by the following three amazing guests. Emily of Wool and Palette. Emily creates beautiful, naturally hand-dyed yarn. In fact, 4 skeins of Emily's yarn came home with me from Flock. Emily's yarn is like a blend of science, art, and a touch of magic. Audrey from Wee Willie's Fiber Arts. Audrey raises Romney sheep. Now I could leave it there, but I won't, because she also fell in love with needle felting and has turned that into a business. And of course, returning back to the podcast, Sarah from Sea Change Fibers. Sarah dyes some gorgeous yarn with a focus on sustainability. She's always thinking about where her materials come from and where they will go. This episode is for the makers who love to know how things work. And for anyone who's ever looked at a skein and thought, wow, there's got to be so much story behind this one skein of yarn. This will be the final Flock Talks from Flock Fiber Festival 2025 to be posted here this year. My Flock Talk with Candace from Farmer Starter Fibers will be re-recorded at the beginning of next year. I can't believe we're already almost there. How are we almost at 2026? It's wild. So stay tuned for that one. We are going to talk all about her story, community, and of course, her work with Sisters United. If you love what I'm doing here on this little corner of the internet and you want to show some support and love, here are a few things that you can do right now. Hit the subscribe button. It's really good for both of us because then you won't miss any of the awesome episodes that are coming up. Share this episode and any of your favorites with your yarn BFF. Click the thumbs up. And of course, comment what you're working on while you're watching the episode. I also love to hear those aha moments that people have when they learn something new. And if you'd like to support financially, which can be once or monthly, you can visit my Ko-fi page. It's linked below, and every bit truly helps keep this passion project going and helps me continue to do fun things for the podcast, like this next announcement. Next week, I will be packing up my mics, hopping in my car, driving 3 hours south to Portland, Oregon, and setting up shop at Sacred Sheep. Every maker has a story, and I want to record yours. I will be recording stories from Sacred Sheep attendees all weekend long for some very special Making Conversation episodes. From projects that carried you through some hard times to special friendships that were created over yarn, and all of the silly, meaningful, life-changing stories in between. This is your chance to share what making means to you. So if you're going to be there, find the Making Conversation podcast area in the community tent. Sign up to record with me. Each morning, slots will open up and it will be first come, first serve. Then just come back to the area a few minutes before your recording time. Each session is going to be about 20 minutes, give or take. Plenty of time to chat about your maker journey. Can't wait to see y'all in Portland. All right, there are cute photos of sheep to be seen and yarny chemistry to be learned. So let's get into it. As we do in every episode, tell us, where did your maker journeys begin?
Mine began when I was working in a yarn shop. I was teaching classes and also, seeing lots of people making things, obviously. At that time, most of the indie dyer, the large amount of the indie dyer yarn it was superwash, it was variegated, it was speckles, it was all those, which of course are lovely. But a lot of my customers would make a sweater and then they'd come in crying because it had grown so much or it fell down to their knees by the end of the day. And I was like, oh, we really need some indie dyed non-superwash. That was something I wanted. And so that was what intrigued me to get mine going.
Do you primarily knit? Do you do any other crafts?
I do a lot of other crafts. I mean, I sew, I embroider, I do crochet some, I do quilting. Yeah, I do quite a bit.
And you learned that when you were younger?
And I learned knitting like 22 years ago.
Who taught you?
I took a class in Seattle.
What shop was it at again? I know we've gone over this before, but
it was as I forget the name of it, it was the one that used to be up in Queen Anne, up on the hill in this beautiful old Victorian home.
Oh, yes. Right. Yeah. I actually used to live like not too far from that spot. It was a really beautiful place. And I am also forgetting the name of it right now. So,
yeah.
But unfortunately is no longer with us. So.
Right. Yeah. It's been gone for a long time now.
I learned to crochet when I was 7. My mom taught me. I would make doll clothes. Fell out of touch with that. And then in my 20s, found this Stitch and Bitch book that was really popular that other people have mentioned. I just poured over that thing and learned how to use it, and would sit there and practice with it and learn how to do all the techniques. And then back then where there was also knittinghelp.com, which was really popular, and then found YouTube stuff. So I just basically learned how to knit, and then found a knit night years ago, and where everybody would get together. And I do remember one time thinking, because my background is in graphic design, and I would be at, work and thinking, oh, I really love knitting. How does one make a living knitting? And I'm sure everyone thinks this when they first start. And I remember Googling it, and the answer was pretty dismal. At that time, Etsy had just taken off a few years prior. And I think some people were successful in it, but by and large, it's very low probability that you could make a good living knitting. So I kind of oh, well, maybe not. And I just went back to my day job and just decided to, knit on my own and have fun. And then found that there was people dyeing yarn. And I was like, well, that seems like a thing that people do. And about 5 years ago, I went down to Powell's bookstore in Portland, Oregon, which is the largest bookstore in the world. And I looked for dye books, and lo and behold, there were a couple books right there that were also about natural dyeing. And I was like, that's a thing? Are you kidding me? That's so cool. And I found the Fiber Shed book, Farmer Becker Burgess, and the whole thing about natural fibers and the textile world and fast fashion. And I devoured that. And so everything kind of came full circle, right? When I discovered all those things. So I'm sorry if that was kind of long.
No, it was perfect.
So I started my, fiber journey when I was in high school. We had a artist in residence program because our high school was too small to have a full-time art teacher. And a fiber artist, a needle felter, came in. And we had that for 2 weeks. I thought it was ridiculous. As a senior in high school, cool jock, why are we stabbing wool? This is silly. But by the end of those first 2 weeks, I actually came up with my first design, which is my little gnome. And yes, I was doing gnomes before they were cool again. And from there, it kind of escalated into me raising my own sheep, as well as continuing to do the fiber arts. So I, was felting all through college, selling at craft fairs. And I would attend our fiber festivals here in Oregon and go through the whole barns of sheep and all the fiber animals. And I fell in love with this particular group of natural colored Romneys. And I knew that I was already using Romney fiber in my felting. Got our first 2 when we got our little farm in 2017. And haven't looked back from there. So I now incorporate the fiber that I raise into the needle felting designs, and then also have, the yarn and the roving and all the fun things to go along with it.
Is there a specific moment that you remember that you realized you wanted to go deeper into raising fiber animals and working with natural dyes, or understanding the chemistry behind it all? Is there an aha moment?
I was already needle felting, and I attended a little field trip that a small designer who was just getting started in Salem called Marie Green. She did a tour of a sheep farm on a shearing day, I think back in 2016. And I saw the sheep being sheared. We got to buy the fleeces, take it to the mill. And that's when I looked at my mother, who drugged me along to this field day. And I said, this is what I want to do. So that was my aha moment into actually raising the sheep.
It was when I did learn how to knit. I learned so much about the different types of fibers and the way they behaved, and what created the type of project that I did want in different aspects of the wool itself. And so I really dove deeply into trying all kinds of different breeds and, different structure and so forth. And that is what inspired me to go the way that I did with my own dyeing.
I touched on it a little bit earlier when I found that book in Powell's bookstore about natural dyeing, and the idea that someone could go and forage for the plants and dye with those was really lovely. I, at the time, was, sitting at a computer all the time, as we all do, and was feeling very stuck and didn't like not moving. I felt really like handcuffed to my desk, and I needed to move my body and do something different and just have a new challenge. So when I saw this specific color dyed with madder root, which is a red in the book, it was like a very orangey, rusty red. I was really smitten with that color specifically, and I thought, I want to make that color. And that is the first color I ever dyed with.
Audrey, this question is for you. For those who haven't raised fiber animals, what does the relationship between the land, the animals, and the fiber look like day to day?
Yeah, there is a lot of day to day. We are always working with the animals. It's all about the health and care of the animals first. And in order to do that, to have healthy livestock, you have to have, healthy forages and environments for them. So a lot of our work here is pasture management, whether that be weed management or watching how low things are being grazed, rotational grazing. We do not have more sheep than our land can support. As much as I would like all of the sheep in all of the colors, we do have limits on that. And then it's kind of cycles through the year, just like with everything else. A lot more intensive management during February and March when we have lambs. We go through lambing. There is, more time and effort focused on the individual sheep and the health of the sheep at that time. And then you talk about, the fiber quality as well. And so there is a lot of management when it goes into keeping those fleeces clean. And some years I'm more successful at that than others. And some those weeds just get by in that pasture management and then get into the fleeces. So there's always I guess I call it a sorting day here. After we shear, we usually shear twice a year, depending on the different animals and kind of how fast they grow their fiber. And so we will take a look at the fleeces, and if they're good enough to sell raw, we sell them to hand spinners. If they're the next step down, that goes to the mill. And then next step down after that is, I process myself for felting, the felting fibers. And then there is some composting at the very last step as well. So my garden gets nice and happy. So it's kind of a full year cycle management.
Emily and Sarah, what are the things that you look for when you're working with farms to source your yarn?
I do look for fairly specific breeds that work well for, sweater projects, because that is really what most people make with the yarn that I dye. And I also care a lot, of course, about, just like you, those ranchers being very responsible with their sheep and with their farm itself, taking good care of it. I'm actually really excited because I have a very sweet story from Lambtown this weekend, which is this sweet family came into my booth, and this girl who's probably around 10 years old started talking to me about, what do you think about, these types of sheep and so forth. Turns out that they have a farm down in San Diego. They're breeding lots of BFL, Blue-Faced Leicester sheep down there. And I was so excited because, as I've got a project going in it right here, BFL was the original thing that I started with because I love it so much. So yeah, I'm going to actually get to work with this family, and they're going to, and their fleece, and I'm going to contact a mill and have it custom milled. I'm very excited.
I love the idea of the little girl coming up and being like, so excited to talk to you about that.
It was great. Yes, I was so happy.
You know, the kids are all right.
Yes, they are. Yeah, the kids are so excited. There was the kids and a younger kid too who were talking to me all about the sheep. They love them. And I just thought that was so sweet. I will admit, I wish I had enough space to have sheep, but unfortunately I don't.
Yeah, maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
Well, that was cool that you opened yourself up to that opportunity. Something really cool came of it. I talked to you about this, Jen, like the beginning of my journey of trying to source the fiber. I'd originally gone directly to a local ranch and processed the wool and then dried it and packed it and sent it off to a local-ish mill because there weren't as many back like 5 years ago, and realized that the shipping back and forth was a significant burden to keeping the yarn the price that I wanted it. So I started looking around, and I did go online and I found the website, the Oregon Sheep Growers Association, and I just started going through the list of what the sheep were and what breeds I liked. And then I eventually came across Jeannie Carver of Imperial Stock Ranch and gave her a call, and she called me back in like 30 minutes and we just started talking. And she's just so incredibly prolific, and was at the time had just started the Shannacle Wool Company, which was only representing her and like 2 other ranches at the time. Now it's up to like 10. Being a natural dyer, the complexity of what I do, that needs to be taken into consideration during the process. And so by eliminating being in charge of the wool and just being able to go directly to the mill, after having met Jeannie and knowing the story and feeling really comfortable about how the sheep are treated and the certification and the rotational grazing that you're talking about, Audrey, and all of those things, I felt really comfortable going that route. And so being able to buy directly from the mill was, I think, really smart, because you can easily start to take on way too much of the process yourself. And even now, I don't use as much dye plants as I used to, very little. In fact, most of what I do is really using dye extracts at this point, because you just need to start eliminating things that are going to slow you way down. And after 5 years, you're like, I'm really tired. Why am I so tired? Well, it's because I'm taking on so much of the process, and it's kind of dumb. Like, figure out how to be a little bit more efficient. And so you just get smarter at business as well. So having to balance all those factors is good.
Work smarter, not harder, as they say.
Yes. And I totally agree with it. It's wonderful to work directly with the mill. That is largely what I do.
Nice.
I only have one base where I don't work directly with the mill.
So Audrey, we're going to talk more about the sheep, because sheep. So you raise and sell Romney sheep. What is special about them and the fiber that they produce?
So I fell in love with Romney because I was using it a lot, so I was familiar with it. There's a lot of, I guess, judgments made about that breed's fiber. And when I saw this group of natural colored Romneys, I couldn't believe the fleece quality. There was gorgeous crimp, it was soft, it had luster, and it just kind of changed my perspective of what I would always assume commercial Romney was. We breed for, the fleece quality, and they also work very well in our climate. So I live in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, and we have a lot of rain most of the year, unless it's this summer when we've gone like 5 months without rain, and it's been very scary. But usually it's a very wet, damp climate. And these sheep do really well in that. They actually originated in the Romney marshes in Kent, England. And so they are great for this climate. Their hooves do well in wet soil, standing water. And so they are, grazing out in the pastures, in and out of the barn all winter long. They are smaller livestock animals, unlike cows and horses that can be, detrimental to muddy pastures. And so there's not as much compaction, not as much tearing up of the fields with the sheep. We're able to graze our wet pastures really well with them throughout the year. And plus they're cute. I mean, ours have a lot of wool on their face. I would say a 3 to 4 month old Romney looks just like a teddy bear, and it's adorable, and it makes everybody want one. And then you can collect them in all the colors. So I just find that they've been a really great breed for me. And I try not to stray too much looking at all the animal barns. Of course, there's a breed or two I'd love to add, but right now we're sticking to the Romneys.
We love a good fuzzy face. Like that's, you just want to like, ooh.
Oh, yeah.
You all know what I'm talking about.
That's what was so fun about Lambtown was all the sheep that were there.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
When you were talking about compacting the ground and how the sheep are good at not doing that, I just imagine them all walking around tippy toes, very carefully. I don't know. That's just how my brain works.
It is fun to see their little hooves you can always tell in the mud. And of course we watch it. There's sometimes that it's just too wet and muddy and we do pull them off, then, and we'll, bring them into the barn or things like that. But yes, it's not quite as much as, they got the big hooves of horses or the cattle.
What are some of your go-to dye sources? I know that everybody here does things a little bit differently. What makes them exciting to work with?
I do use acid dyes, and I did really strongly debate natural versus acid dyes, but because, might sound silly, but because I really started my business focusing on selling yarn to shops, not selling it directly retail, the colors needed to be very consistent from order to order to order, and that's much more difficult with the natural dyes. So that is why I went with the acid dyes, and then I did research on how to do that in the most environmentally responsible way that I could. I order from 2 different places for the dyes. I love to play with colors and explore the different ones and, combine different colors to see how they make a really cool color. And mine are tonal, not variegated, but they're all combinations of at least 2 dyes and sometimes more.
I mentioned that I started out with foraging and growing a lot of things. I still have a pretty large natural dye garden and do use some of my own flowers and weld. Weld makes yellow, and I do have a bunch of madder root, which takes 3 years for the roots to mature enough to have enough of that color. So they sit in the ground for a really long time. But primarily now I use a lot of dye extracts. So I get them from Aurora Silk, who is actually just like a 20-minute drive for me in North Portland. And then also Botanical Colors, quite a bit. And I have so many different powders and materials and things that are just really fun to play with. And it's fun to play with because you just have to have like a knowledge of chemistry to understand what it is that's going on in the water. The metals affect it, tannins affect it, heat, time, oxidation affects it. There's just so much going on. So you just kind of have to have a good understanding of chemistry.
I know the answer to this, but what is the most interesting natural thing that you've dyed with before? Didn't you use bugs?
Oh, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, which plant is, I totally forgot about the bugs. Yeah. There is a bug called Cochineal, which lives its life on the prickly pear cactus and gorges itself. And after it's done, eating, then it lays its eggs and then it dies and then it's scraped off the plant and dried and sorted. And it doesn't even look like a bug at that point. It's all dried up and it makes the most intense magenta, really intense magenta color. And that is what they used to use to make red. But it is pH sensitive, so you can alter the alkalinity and push it towards more purple. You can add more acid and make it more red, like a scarlet red versus like a magenta. But there's also another bug called LAC, L-A-C, which is similar. Both use carmine as their chemical base, and that's usually found in Asia, whereas cochineal is found in like Mexico, Canary Islands, that kind of band of, warm weather. As long as there's prickly pear cactus.
Let's dig more into the chemistry because you touched on it a little bit and it's so fascinating. What is really happening on a molecular level when natural dye binds to fiber? And can you walk us through what makes that process work or not work? Because I know sometimes it also doesn't work.
So what's happening is like specifically with protein fibers and wool and silk, but wool is what I work with. And it's a great thing to dye with because it contains both amino groups and carboxyl groups. And so they both have a negative and a positive charge. It needs to be aided in the process of mordanting. Mordanting is the presence of a metal salt, like iron or alum or tin or copper. Those things have a positive charge. And mordant bonding, that's what's happening. So a mordant in the French word is called to bite. And I just found this out in my chemistry class that actually when a mordant and a dye come together, it's not the mordant that's biting, it's the dye that's biting the mordant. Mm-hmm. So you need to put the wool in the mordant, that makes a bond, and then the dye will adhere to that.
Oh.
But there are other processes that aren't just mordant dye. You can also use tannins. Tannins can also take the place of a mordant or be a dye. And then you have other things like indigo, which uses a completely different process. It's a redox process, which is oxidation, and it involves solubility because indigo is actually not soluble. You have to make it water soluble. And at the end, it goes back to being insoluble. So that's not a chemical dye with a mordant. It's more of like being embedded into the fiber.
Does anyone else have sciencey things they want to say right now? We're in the science portion of the podcast episode.
Well, Sarah does a lot of cool stuff with like how she's able to more efficiently dye without so much electricity and water, which I was really fascinated.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, tell
I
me
can talk
all
about that.
Yeah.
On the water side, and this, of course, while I was in California, was very important to not use tons and tons of water because right now there's not a big water problem, but at the time there was. And one benefit of the acid dyes is that the acid dye does soak completely into the yarn. So when it's done, the water's clear. And what that means is that you can take out, you don't have to dump the whole thing out. You can pull out the skeins, and then you can put in another batch of yarn into the same water. And the way that I do it is I'll start with like the palest colors and kind of work my way darker. You know, each dye pot will be a different type of color. So you'll start with like a beige or gray, a light blue or a light yellow or a light pink, and then kind of work your way up in the colors. So that means that you're not using a ton of water and it's more efficient that way. And then from the electricity standpoint, what I did do beautifully when I moved back home to Portland was I deliberately bought a house that had a perfect angle on the roof to be able to put solar panels on it. And so I have 24 solar panels on my roof, and I do time all of my dyeing. In the winter, I won't be able to do it quite as well, but for most of the year, I can time all of my dyeing for when the solar panels are quite active, and they are directly fueling the electricity in my home. And that way I am using solar energy to dye the yarn.
Efficiency. Love it.
Yes. And luckily, I still send a lot into the system, so I'm collecting credits. And those credits, you know, for me financially, those will apply during the winter for when I'm dyeing a lot of yarn in the winter time.
From each of your perspectives, what is one thing that you hope that makers might understand about what you do that they might not know about right now?
I try to be as efficient as possible in my process and be very systematic so I can make a larger quantity of yarn in reproducible colors. But I'm still very slow, very, very, very slow compared to everyone else. So at most I can only make 40 skeins a week. I did push it and try to do 50. And then one week I tried to do 60, and wow, that was really a big mistake. Like I was dying day after day after day, and I was like, I want to quit this. I hate it so much. So I'm sticking to 40. I feel like that's a good number for me. So that is just always going to be a thing that's in my way. I make as much as I can for a large, for a booth, to fill a booth, an event. And I bring as much as I can, and I don't have any backfill. And a lot of times people will be disappointed, and they're like, oh, you ran out of this color. You didn't have this in this base. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I just ran out of flowers. Or like, I just, that's all I could make in that specific amount of time. So what I bring is all I can manage to make in a certain amount of time. Unless I go and like buy a dye vat. And I did look into that. And I think I was quoted at like $11,000. So I think at this point it's a little out. It's beyond my capabilities. So I'm just going to stick with the pots for right now.
If any of you have been sad about it, if 11 of you get together and each donate $1,000, you will get all of the skeins you want every time.
Well, the funny thing is I don't even exactly know how many skeins that dyes at once. It could be that it dyes 20 once, but it allows me to not kill my shoulders because it has a hydraulic lift, and I'd still probably would need to hustle just to make half that. So there's just a lot of industrial knowledge that goes into producing something, and everyone's got a different way of doing it. I've gone into some dye facilities where they're using like maybe they've got 40 pots, and then they've got like their own specific humidifier. Everyone is trying to figure out how to make this process work for them in a hands-on type of way.
I think that's an interesting thing is that what some people who maybe just always use the end product, some of them may understand, but how time and labor intensive all fiber arts is. And whether that's, raising the sheep or being the shearer or cleaning the wool or dyeing the yarn or weaving any of it, there's just a lot of time that goes into it. And I always get asked by my business friends, are you making sure you're getting your time out of it when you sell things? I go, well, all of it? No. Because do I count all those midnight checks that I'm doing during lambing season or, every time that it takes me to, set up an event an extra couple of hours because I'm just slow at that particular time. Folks recognizing the amount of time that a lot of these finished products take. For example, our fleeces will get sheared. I use a very small mill here in Oregon. If she'll take them, we get them milled, sheep-specific yarn. It could be, a year or more from the time that those fleeces are shorn till the time I have a finished product of skeins. So, and then on the needle felting side of things, it takes, I feel your comment very much about wanting to have all the inventory possible and disappointing, folks when you don't have that thing. Because I guess wrong all the time. Some of my favorite designs, I'm like, of course, everyone will love this. And then no one likes it, but they like the things I made 5 of. And so, it's that guessing game I haven't won at yet. Romney can be, lovely and wonderful. And next to skin, I would like to just point out that this sweater is our yarn and it's, next to skin, comfortable. And I've got, Paulina, and the white is boots. So I'm wearing my sheep right now, always asking whoever the maker is that you're either talking to or shopping from, learning about their process, because as you can see, most of us are very passionate about that.
I will say that I also work a lot because my process is different. I am able actually to create a lot in a certain amount of time. But like when I go to festivals, I always bring way more than I know I'm going to sell because I don't like to run out of colors because people get sad. And also you never know for sure like what's going to be popular at a different festival in a different year because everybody's opinions kind of vary over time. When I first started, I would, dye everything I had and sell it, and then I would order more. But with everything that's been going on with the economy right now, over the last several months, what I did do was stock up a lot, work directly with the mills and stock up a lot on the yarn. So I have it on hand in order to be able to refill things quickly, especially if customers want a special, I did run out of a color and they want that color, then I can custom dye it for them when I get back home. And I can also help yarn shops keep their inventory up by being able to turn around those orders pretty quickly. So that's been my big effort lately, is keeping everything going to help the customers.
Was there a different color that was popular at Flock versus Lambtown?
It's kind of a joke. I mean, I say that my specializing with color is I call it dirty jewel tones. Where they're jewel tones with some extra kind of murky type colors in them. Flock is in the summertime. And then, of course, if you do something that's in the spring, then More flowery colors are more popular. Lighter weight yarns are more popular. At Lambtown, it was, very much fall colors, dark colors, DK weight, ready to make sweaters for the fall and the winter.
You know what I was surprised by is that, butter yellow is supposed to be like the new big thing, which I didn't make that. But yellow is notoriously the worst color to sell. It is just the one that sits in the inventory the longest. And like a really bright yellow, like every once in a while people will see like one skein and they're like, what's that? Or I have to make like mustard or something like a really deep, moody, kind of a dusty brownish or orangey yellow. Color trends are really funny that way.
Right now, the most popular ones are greens and teals and blues and browns.
Mm-hmm. Dark green is always the first that
Yes.
sells for me.
Yes, always. For me too.
Oh, wow.
And then also my gray bases are even more popular always because of the way that they take color. And of course, I will always bring some that is the natural because it's so beautiful with its heathered gray look. And those always sell quickly as well.
Audrey, with your felted items, what was the most popular thing that you sold at Flock?
Ghosts, which I was not ready for. Ghosts in hats, ghosts holding pumpkins, ghosts in sweaters. I think I sold out a ghost in the first 2 hours. So I will now be more prepared. But it's always fun to see, what items sell more than anything. My sister, who comes and helps me a lot with the booths and the events, the only reason I'm able to show sheep at the ones that have animals as well, she knits these tiny little sweaters and she's been putting sheep on them and pumpkins on them. And then I felt the little ghosts and we put little ghosts in sweaters and we have not been able to keep those on the shelf. So that's fun. Again, another very time intensive thing.
Yeah.
Sounds like you
That's
should work
cute.
for Leica and do some of that, stop motion animation knitting.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Great idea.
I love when they come out with a new video every time. I'm like, this is just fantastic because I know how much effort it goes into just a still version. All those stabs. So, yeah.
When you are not dyeing or farming or fibering, what brings you joy?
I do a lot of like biking and hiking and go to the beach a lot. And yeah, a lot of nature.
Oregon coast.
Oh, yeah.
It's gorgeous.
I will have to say my answer is not terribly fun because this fiber arts portion is my getaway, is my escape, which nothing like having a second job to be an escape. But anytime I can, take some time and do knitting or spinning, for example, which is very rare, but those are always a lovely way too. And then traveling. I don't get, away very often because, again, the farm. But when I do, I always find that that's a really great way to just energize, maybe see different perspectives, different colors, different motivations on those very rare chances I get to travel, which is why I joke I will travel for wool. So at least, this part of my life can send me on those adventures.
Where's the last place that you went to that didn't have anything to do with work?
Oh, well,
the fact that you have
that
to
is
think about
quite
it too long. We got to get you a vacation.
Well, I was just thinking, yes, I was just thinking, I had Estes Park, but that was for wool, and then Italy, but that was for the day job. So, yeah, I do find time, though. I'm one of those folks that just likes to be busy and always working. So I try to wrap joy around wherever I can, while doing those things.
Nice. It's important.
I figure I'll know that I've made it when someone calls me and they're like, you need to come and visit Europe and teach over here and we'll pay your plane ticket. I'm waiting for that phone call to happen.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Happened. Why?
All right, everyone who's watching from Europe, this is,
Get me out there.
throw it out there.
That's a good, if we're making calls out, I would love to go pick out new sheep. So New Zealand, let me know. That's where my Romney genetics are originally from. Would love to have more.
We're manifesting right now, Jen, right now on this
I know.
podcast.
I love a good manifestation, especially on this podcast, because then if it happens, I just feel like what I'm doing is even more important.
Oh, yes. All credit to you for sure.
I was going to say knitting, but that would be fibering. I love to cook. I learned how to make pasta this year, and it's really fun. I think I mentioned when we were on the stage that I do like to karaoke. So that is one of those things that makes it's like a out of body experience. It's like as an adult going on a roller coaster, like that kind of fun.
Where's your go-to karaoke spot?
There's a chain of karaoke places called Voice Box in Portland. And so you can rent out a room and do it for a few hours. You have to get the tambourine. Always make sure you have that in your room because that makes like every song. I'm always the one like, where's our tambourine? Come on, hurry up.
I like the karaoke tips. This is awesome.
Yeah. Should we do Sacred Sheep karaoke?
Yes.
It's a date and everyone's invited. Okay, we're going to go into our famous rapid fire questions that usually end up turning into non-rapid. So choose your own adventure, however you want to answer it. What is a dye plant or pigment that you'll never get tired of?
Creating teal colors and also different shades of green and brown. Those are what I am most fascinated with.
That's a good question. And I actually might echo you there because I have been making dark green, like logwood with weld over the top of it, like week after week after week. And some batches I nail it and some I don't. And I'm still always trying to make the perfect green and it is elusive. So I think because I never get it just like I want it, I'll probably never get tired of it.
Audrey, I'm going to guess that you've raised many, many sheep, which means lots and lots of sheep names. Tell us your most creative sheep name.
I thought about this after we had the talk on stage and was like, gosh, there were so many other choices, but I'm going with the original, and that's Chunk. I have a tendency to nickname things and they stick around with that name. So Chunk was about a 16-pound ewe lamb in 2020. And she was just the lady chunk. So I'd refer to her as the little chunk in the pasture because my husband still doesn't know what any of the sheep's names are. And then so it stuck. And now she's our logo. Oh. So yes, Chunk. But there's been fun ones like Panko. I've got a Boots. There's a Fancy. I got to stop nicknaming them again. And now I've got one I'm calling the Gray Puffball. So help. Need a name. We show her in a week and a half. She got to have something before then.
That is her name, the Gray Puffball. You've done it. It's perfect.
Well, I did name my light gray color Narwhal because I felt like that was kind of, interesting. But so maybe you could use Narwhal.
Oh, and that's
because that's like kind of a shapeless, big, large animal, right?
Yes, I love that. And she wears a lobster coat, so she's already sea creature themed. So, I mean, that's pretty fantastic.
I think she also needs a horn now. So you're going to have to
obviously
get to needle felting. Needle felt her I'll get a narwhal horn. Oh, I love this. We just made something happen. That's great. What is your dream vacation? City exploring, nature escape, or beach vibes?
I would say city because I'm really into food. So I want to go eat everything and, walk around beautiful architecture.
What's a dish that you have had on your travels that you just think like, I wish I could go back right now and eat it?
One that I have a strong memory of is when we went to South Korea and we had oxtail soup just, in a cup. And I wasn't expecting that. It was this place where you had to take your shoes off by the door and you sat on the floor. And it was just such a strong memory. I'm like, oh, man, was that good. It was just broth.
Silly, but I would say for me, it's all three. And I especially love going to a city where there is good nature right there and, a beach nearby or a big lake, rivers and things, being able to explore the city itself and nature is what makes me extra happy.
I'm going to go with nature. The mountains are always calling. I'm going to get to the Tetons one day.
Okay, we're going to go back to manifesting.
Yeah.
Day job, whatever it is. You will send Audrey to Wyoming. What is the last thing that made you laugh really hard?
Probably some reel I'm really close friends with Mackenzie of Hanks and Needles, and we're always sending each other reels. Boop, 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 boop. I always look up, I'm like, what'd she send me today?
The most funny thing lately has been watching my new chickens exploring and checking everything out. And also there's a neighbor cat that wanders around the neighborhood, and that kitty loves to jump in there and be like, hey, chickens. And they're like, oh, hi. And they all kind of play with each other, and it just makes me laugh.
Oh my God, I love that. At first, I was a little nervous for the chickens.
No. Yeah, but
Unless
no, they all
that
play
cat
together.
has a long game.
It's a sweet
then.
cat.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
That cat also likes to jump up like on our window when our cats are sitting on the windowsill. That cat will be like, "Oh, hi!" You know,
Oh,
they all play right there too.
I would say kind of along the video line, but more of the making content. The social media and the video content's really hard, but I have a lot of good opportunity. And so I thought I was very clever. And about a week ago, got a video of my ewe lambs crashing into each other and put it to Wrecking Ball because I just thought it was hilarious. And we got like, I don't know, 200 views, like hardly anything, but it just made me laugh. So I think if you can, make yourself laugh with the work that you're doing, that's because I was feeding sheep. There was chores going on, but, always time to whip out the phone for, sheep being funny.
I was going to say, with a work-related thing that makes me laugh is if I'll say accidentally grab the wrong color and then put the yarn in and be like, oh no, I grabbed that instead of this, but then I'll pull it out when it's done and I'm like, oh God, it's gorgeous. And I just start to laugh.
Happy accidents. We love it.
Yes, I love happy accidents in dyeing yarn.
Yes, because most of what I do with this podcast is content creation, obviously, with actually editing and posting the podcast, but creating things to help promote it. Views, whatever, it is nice. I do this again for fun, so it's not like I'm waiting for the YouTube paycheck, which is laughable anyways, but just making myself laugh with some of the things that I put together, that's like it's the best part, and that's the point, right? So yeah. I'm glad that you had that moment, and now I will have to go find that reel because that sounds hilarious to me. And you'll
have to see if it's funny as I think it is, but as long as I think it's funny, it's important, right?
Exactly. What is one tool in your studio / on your farm that you couldn't live without?
The spin dryer, like after the yarn, you're done washing it and rinsing it, and you put it in there, and it takes all the water out. I don't know what I did before I bought that thing. That thing is magic.
Is it like a salad spinner? You sit there and push the top.
It's much bigger.
I would totally agree. The spin dryer is essential, especially for not having to wait for days for your yarn to be dry and be able to use.
My sassy answer wants to be my wrist, because let me tell you, needle felting, there is none of that without, and I can already start to feel it. So we'll see how long that lasts. But for a physical tool, I built, and I mean not me, our facilities manager, which is what I call my husband, but he built a skirting table with PVC pipe, and just one that has been really fantastic for going through fleeces and things like that. So we saved $1 by building it. However, there was a few fights involved. So, toss up.
Last question for everyone, and it is not rapid fire. We have gone through the rapid fire questions. What is something that you've learned from the land, the animals, or the dye pot that has shaped how you show up as a maker or as a person?
It's a good question. I think for me, it has been really discovering the colors that appeal the most to me. Also seeing a color, like when I'm, say, out for a walk and I see a beautiful color in nature, and now I'm able to go home and be like, okay, this dye and this dye, these proportions, and be able to like mimic that color. I think that's my most important thing.
That's patience, because I have to make sure I don't rush certain processes. And if I get lazy and tired and I decide to not go rotate my skeins and mordant, and I come back out and like the results will be streaky or uneven. Like the chemistry will always tell me that I didn't do it right. Like I can't undo a lot of things. So being patient and following the process the way it needs to be followed. And that I'm a very impatient person. So I guess it's really good for me to practice that.
I've learned that it's okay to have bad days and for things to not always go perfectly, which is very hard for my January Capricorn energy to accept sometimes, but you can't do it all, and that's okay. I've had some of the most triumphant and the most trying times farming and raising sheep. I mean, there's nothing like going out at 2 a.m. and trying to save a lamb. And whether you're, successful or, hopefully, there's just a lot of lessons. And I have learned that I can do a lot more than I ever thought possible. But you also have to give yourself grace and know that, it's okay if you can't make it all possible.
Wow, that's a good note to go out on. We can't do it all, but as long as we show up putting our best foot forward and our best self, that's all we can do. And save all the lambs that you can.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for taking the time again. I'm grateful for all of the information that you've shared, but also that we were able to chat again.
Yeah, thank you.